In my top 10 lists, I always include 10 games which I am ranking from 10 to 1 in accordance to some criteria. But today, only one game, but 10 different reasons why you should definitely play it. Hello, this is Michel Leviathan Sorbet and this is a new episode of Wojennik TV. Anno Domini 1666, published by Wargamer Games Studio. A game which I have already presented on my channel several times, showing you both the core game, the expansion for 3 to 4 players, different expansions, telling you also how to start playing and explaining the skills which can be found in the core game. Today a different type of video because I would like to share with you 10 reasons why I believe that you should try this game. So 10 reasons why I personally like the system, 10 reasons why maybe you also should check it out. Anno Domini 1666 is a tactical adventure miniatures game set in the 17th century, in the middle of the century in Vienna. It was designed by Konrad Sosiński and Rafał Szwelicki. It is for 2 to 4 players aged 14 and higher, and the time of play will be from 1 to 2 hours depending on the scenario. If you're wondering why you should definitely try this game, I invite you to take a look at this top 10 list. So without further ado, let's start by number 10. In fact, because this is not a classical top 10 list, I will start by number 1. So firstly, you should definitely try Anno Domini 1666 because this is a mix both of a miniatures game and a board game. I'm personally a huge fan both of classical board games and also of wargaming, of miniatures games. I have tried several systems and I enjoy playing games in which you have to assemble your own army, in which you have to use a certain number of assets in order to prepare your own forces and then to battle your enemy. On the other hand, I love board games. As you all know, I like war games, I like games focused on historical conflict, but not only, because I play different types of games. And Anno Domini 1666 is a mix of both those types, because this is both a miniatures game using miniatures, using a battle resolution system, enabling you to create your own band to face your enemies, but at the same time it is still a board game. It uses boards, so this is a different approach from classical miniatures game in which you have only a playing area, you are using rulers. Here you have boards which determine the playing area, which make tracing line of sight much more easy, which have those, instead of 3D, two-dimensional elements on the boards. So this is a mix of both. If you're a fan both of board games and of war games, of miniatures games, you do not have to choose anymore. You can choose Anno Domini 1666, which has the best things taken from both systems. This is, in my opinion, one of the strongest elements of this game, and definitely one of the reasons why you should try this game. The second reason is that when opening the box, you receive ready miniatures. You do not have to assemble them. From my own perspective, this is a huge plus. I like games which have already prepared miniatures, which do not have to be cut, glued, prepared, painted. I like games in which I have already all the elements which are needed to play in the box. And in the case of Anno Domini 1666, it is the case. So the miniatures are already ready. Of course, this might be a problem for some people who really are into miniatures games, who believe that pure miniatures games should be the ones where you should assemble your minis, glue them, prepare them, then paint them. But still, Anno Domini is a game which you can enhance additionally, because all those miniatures are not painted. They are ready, but they are not painted. They come into different formats. We have plastic minis and metal minis. You can choose from both, and you can still paint them. If you take a look at some of the photos published both on Facebook and on the internet, you can see that when painted, those miniatures look extremely well. So from my own perspective, having those miniatures already assembled is a huge plus of the game, and in my opinion, it will be also appealing to some of you. The third reason is somewhat related to the second one, because those miniatures which are already assembled make the game ready to be played instantly out of the box. But not only the miniatures, because we have several miniatures game which, in order to be played, require us to have more than one box. We should have, for instance, 2 boxes with 2 different factions, which only then allow us to play a new game. In Anno Domini 1666, the approach is pretty much similar than when it comes to standard board games. You buy the core game and you can instantly enjoy the full diversity of scenarios, the full elements which are enclosed, using only all those components. Still, you have a lot of additional expansions, including the 3-4 players additional scenarios, including tons of additional factions, additional miniatures which are enhancing those 2 factions which are included in the core box. But even without them, you can fully enjoy the game, playing a lot of very interesting scenarios. So having a game ready to be played out of the box is, in my opinion, also one of the strongest points of this system. The fourth reason is related to the quality of what we receive. And in my opinion, one of the other very strong points of this system is the artwork and the quality of the elements that we receive. Not only we can start playing out of the box, we can use everything that we have inside this box. All those elements are of an extremely high quality. As I said a few moments ago, we have 2 different types of miniatures. We have both plastic ones, metal ones. You can choose from both. The metal ones are meant to be much more resilient, which are also in general addressed to more experienced miniature players, but still the plastic ones are quite pretty as well. I like the artwork on the cards, which are small piece of art. I like also all the elements which are added, such as the cards, which are stylish, which are of high quality. I like the tokens. The miniatures themselves are also small pieces of art, especially if you know the characters which those miniatures represent, because there is really a big resemblance between those miniatures and the way that those characters were represented in books, in movies which were filmed about those characters. So the quality of the elements is very high, and it is, in my opinion, also one of the reasons why this game is such interesting and such also pleasant to use. Definitely one of the reasons why you should take Anno Domini 1666 into consideration. The fifth reason is related to the potential of development of this universe, because Anno Domini 1666 is set in a universe, is set in a period of time which is extremely interesting. And I already said that this game can be played out of the box, but still you have really a lot of expansions which were already released, and that's not it. And that's not the end. We still have many others which are planified, which are planned, which will be launched, which will be published if only the game still evolves. This is a system with a huge potential, and when I reviewed the game when it was released some time ago, I said that this is a strong point of this system. It should definitely be developed, it should evolve into something much more interesting than it was initially, and it does evolve, it grows with each release, with each new edition, with each new expansion. I believe that those limits of development are still far away, so this game is something which already has a lot of diversity, which already has a lot of factions, a lot of options. If you jump into this game now, you still have a lot of things which will await you in the near future. And it's always nice to see systems which are released and then which are developed, which are fully supported by the publisher. It's not the case of every system, but in Anno Domini 1666, it's definitely the case. With the increasing number of expansions and with different editions comes also a growing community. And if I were to search for things which might be something interesting enough for some of you, that would be it, a growing community of players. We can take a look at both the publisher's profile on Facebook. We can take a look at the dedicated fan groups on Facebook in order to see that this community is still growing. So this is a game which still evolves, which is still in its development, and we have really a lot of people who join our community, who want to discover this game, who want to play it. Here in Poland, a lot of people are interested by the system. We have regular fans. We have fans who regularly play it, even with the pandemic still present. We have some tournaments. We have a community which asks for additional stuff, which is extremely engaged. And this is a sign that this system lives, that this system is popular, and that this system still has a lot of potential. So when you decide if you want to enter into a system, if you want to invest in it, you should definitely take a look at if this is a system still evolving with a high developed, engaged community. The answer concerning Anno Domini 1666 is yes, it does. Yes, it has all of that. So this is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why you should try this game, because this is not a game which will be dead in a few months. It will still be supported. It still has a dedicated fan group. I think that's a very strong point. The seventh reason is strictly related to the game's mechanics, and this will be the diceless combat resolution system. When thinking of miniatures games, we think instantly of a lot of different miniatures, of a huge playing area, of a lot of terrain feature, and of tons of dice. In Anno Domini 1666, we have exactly 0 dice. We will be using only decks of cards, and combat will be resolved using our skills, using our capacities, and using our hand of cards. And I love this. I like this approach because this is so much different from a lot of miniatures games. I don't have anything against dice. In contrary, I like dice games. I like games in which you will be rolling a lot of different dice. For instance, I enjoyed really a lot Warriors. I like Trois. I like war games using tons of dice. But still, having a miniatures games without any dice is so original, is so elegant, and I love it. I think it is also a reason why this game might be interesting for a lot of non-miniature players, for players who do not want to invest in miniature systems, who are afraid of tons of dice, of a lot of expenses concerning buying still additional expansions. You can buy only the core game, enjoy a mix of a board game, of a war game without those dice, and without having to worry that you have to buy additional stuff in order to stay competitive, in order to play the game and fully enjoy it. You can just enjoy the core game and still have fun with it, and still have fun with the combat resolution system, in which it's the way how you manage your hand of cards, how you move your miniatures, and how you use your skills will be the most important element. I think this is one of the strongest points of Anno Domini 1666. The eighth reason is that you have really a lot of playing modes in Anno Domini 1666. You can enjoy the game just playing in, you can just play the scenarios which are included in the core game. You can play additional scenarios which are inside the 3 to 4 players scenario pack. You can download additional expansions which are created by fans. You can also create your own scenarios, because this is a game which can easily be tailored to your own needs. You can just decide how to play. You can also decide to play a skirmish battle in which both sides will create their own band, in which we will have a certain amount of points, spend them in order to buy both miniatures or characters as well as equipment. You can use characters which are inside the expansions in order to add more diversity to your band. So this is a game which has it all. If you're a board game fan, you can just play the scenarios. You have exactly what you need inside the box. You have all the things described, you have the initial setup, the initial forces. No need to worry about creating your own forces. You just take what is written in the scenario description. But if you want to play to experience a more miniatures game than a board game, you still can do it very easily. Or all miniatures all characters in the game, all equipment have a certain cost. You can just decide that we are playing an 80 points players game, or we can play a 120 points game using, for instance, only commoners, or only bands in which we'll have 2 unique characters and then common characters. It's up to you. You can really just enjoy the game just as you want. So this extreme flexibility of the system, this great variety, this palette of options is also an extremely strong point of this universe and of this system. The ninth reason is also related to mechanics, and it is the fact that in this game it is not only about combat. In most of miniatures games, in most of games in which you are creating your own army, in which you are facing your opponent, the objective is very simple. You have to destroy your opponent. You have to kill a certain amount, eliminate or kill or annihilate a certain amount of your opponent's miniatures. If you do, you score victory points and you win. Of course, we have some exceptions, we have some specific rules saying that, for instance, for controlling a specific objective, you have some points. For reaching a certain place on the battlefield, you have certain points. Escorting a character, you have a certain amount of victory points. But still, the most common way to resolve the outcome of a game will be to compare the number of eliminated enemy units to your own eliminated units, which at the end give you a certain number of points. In Anno Domini 1666 it's not the same, because here still eliminating enemy opponents will be very important, but the scenarios will be different. Sometimes you'll have to escort someone, sometimes you'll have to pick up an item and bring it back somewhere. And even with defeating more opponents than your opponent killed in your band, you can still lose because you didn't achieve the main objective of the scenario. And I like this approach because this is again one of the elements which are more related to classical board games than to miniatures games. So this is something which might attract players which are focused on board games, who enjoy board games at most times, who like games in which you have different objectives. You have, of course, this option of just preparing a band and deciding that it's the side who kills more opposing miniatures who wins. It's still here, but when using those scenarios which are inside of the core game and of the expansions, you have also scenarios which have different objectives. And I like it a lot. This is a different approach. This is also a thing which makes this game quite different. Because additionally, apart from the classical combat resolution system, we have also this additional system-related conversations, to talking to other characters. You can approach different characters and try to talk them out from attacking you. You can influence them. You can try to talk neutral characters to join your band. And this is also an interesting approach. This is something which I extremely like in Anno Domini 1666, because it's not always choosing the most powerful combat, the character most powerful in combat terms that is the best option. Sometimes it's the most versatile or the most efficient in contacts with other miniatures character who will prove to be the most important one. And I like it really a lot. Last but not least, one of the most important reasons why I really enjoy and like this universe and this game is its setting and all the background stories that the characters included in this game have. Because Anno Domini 1666 is set in the middle of the 17th century in Vienna, but the characters that we receive in this game come from books, come from pop culture, and it's more easy to play with them, it's more easy to like them, to hate them, to use them, because we all know them. On the Polish side, we have the characters coming from Henryk Sienkiewicz trilogy, so we have Wołodyjowski, Skrzetuski, Basia Wołodyjowska, the powerful Longinus, the funny Zagłoba, etc. On the French side, we have the musketeers, so we have Aramis, we have Porthos, D'Artagnan, all coming from Alexandre Dumas books. And if we think of those characters, we instantly think of movies with Michael York, for instance, or the Polish movies created about the trilogy. Additionally, we have more characters in the expansions, which are also taken from our culture, and it is much more easy to play with such characters. It is much more easy to like them, to hate them, to know their background, to imagine how they behave, how they look on the board. When playing some miniatures games or board games, when we have anonymous characters which still have their own name or their background story, it's much more difficult to imagine them, because we do not have an image of them which comes from another element of pop culture. Here, having those books, having those movies makes us instantly think of those characters. It's much more pleasant. It gives you a better insight on how they look, how they behave. And this is, in my opinion, a great idea to include all those characters, to make such a mix, because earlier nobody had this idea of mixing together all those characters coming both from Dumas or Sienkiewicz books or even from Cervantes books, because we have an expansion in which we can play Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, and you can still use them and maybe fight a battle in which you will have them alongside Polish troops or French troops or maybe Cossack troops. It's up to you. So having those additional characters coming from different books, movies and other sources makes your imagination work in a different way than in many other war games, miniatures games or board games. I love the idea, I love the setting. At the same time, the 17th century was such an interesting century with such a lot of things, of interesting events that happened, that this universe can only grow, can only be more interesting than it is currently. It expands, it's a universe which will be further expanded because of people's support, because they want more factions, because they want more characters. And what's extremely interesting, what is also extremely valuable, is the fact that the publisher listens to the people. He asks themselves what characters would they like. They are telling him what they expect, what they would like, and Wargamer Games Studio takes all of this into consideration. So I will not be surprised if some popular petition to Wargamer Games Studio saying that they would like a specific faction or a specific character were later was later accepted and such a character was really released. It's all up to us, and the publisher shows that he has great respect to what people want. He supports the game in a very professional way. I also believe this is one of the strongest reasons why you should definitely think about trying Anno Domini 1666. This was the list of 10 reasons why you should consider playing Anno Domini 1666 from my own perspective. Those were the reasons which made me discover this game, which incited me to try this title, and which also make me to want more in this universe. I hope that you enjoyed this list. I invite you to take a look at the website of the publisher and also to take a closer look at the Kickstarter page of Anno Domini 1666, because a new campaign will soon be launched. This was a list of 10 reasons why you should try Anno Domini 1666. Thank you a lot for watching it. I invite you also to take a look at our other videos. I invite you also to take a look at what we publish on Facebook and Instagram. I wish you a terrific day and see you next time.